not going to talk about the tweet. Beyond this, I'm pretty sure it was about Mike Elliott. Okay, moving on. Ferrari. My second favourite topic of conversation after Checo. Alright, so we're going to do this quickly today because it's fucking windy outside, but I'm not shutting the doors. It's so hot. It is the 1st of November and it's cooking. It's stonking out there, okay? So excuse the extremely unprofessional clothing. I've just been outside enjoying a nice sunbathe on the deck and I had to come inside because I honestly thought I was going to die of exposure. Not of the cold kind of exposure, the sun cooking fried egg. We have no ozone layer here. You go outside for 10 minutes and you end up a tomato, okay? You've got to wear the sunscreen. If you're not wearing sunscreen in Aotearoa, you're a fucking idiot. Which means me, because I did it. Highest rate of melanoma in the entire world, and look at me. I am so intelligent. I'm a very intelligent, smart person. Yeah. This is a completely unscripted rant today because I have been sick all weekend and I still feel kind of miserable, which is why I was sitting outside in the sun without any sun protection because I was trying to get some vitamin D to try and make myself feel slightly better. So you'll have to excuse my very weird voice. I'm dying here. Anyway, Ferrari. We need to talk about a very specific type of Ferrari fan, okay? There are parts of the internet that I go to do research. I don't want to tell you what parts of the internet that is. I lurk there. It is not a fun place. Those certain parts of the internet are filled mostly with people who learned about Formula One only through Drive to Survive and then started doing online fandom for it. Now it's really important to know I don't have any problem with Drive to Survive or people who have got into Formula One through Drive to Survive. I think it's great. Okay? Drive to Survive even was the catalyst for me finally getting off my ass and paying the $14.95 a month for F1 TV rather than surviving off highlight packages on YouTube and what I could read on the blogs. Okay? Like, I don't begrudge people being fans because of Drive to Survive. It's great. It's done an awesome thing for the sport. It's brought a whole shitload of money into it. Well done, Netflix. Well done. I think you did a good job. Anyway, the point is, there is a certain type of fan. And as somebody who has spent a lot of their life in these very interesting and strange fan spaces, you know the kind I'm talking about. I'm into Star Wars, okay? You know the kind of fan spaces I'm talking about. I unfortunately come across people who are into F1 the same way they are into these other kinds of media. Or things like K-pop fandom, for instance, Taylor Swift fandom. Fucking, I don't know who the cool kids are nowadays in the music scene. I don't. Sorry, but yeah, you know the kind I mean. That is now a thing for F1. And what I've discovered is that Ferrari is a real... It's a bit of a flame war situation. If you don't know what a flame war situation is, I'm going to put a little link down in the description that's going to take you to a place that's going to explain things to you about certain parts of the internet, and you're going to learn what flames are. Most of the teams, there's always going to be a little bit of conflict sometimes between certain people who support a certain driver and maybe not so much the other. Like for me personally, I'm not actually a big Mercedes fan, but I am a pretty decent Lewis Hamilton fan. And this is, don't cancel me for this, there's just something about George that I just really don't like, and I can't put my finger on what it is. There's just something about him that really rubs me up the wrong way. Okay, but I'm not going to go out there on the internet and start bagging on George. Like, what I'm not going to go out there on the internet, start bagging on George, digging around in his fucking liked tweets. I am not unfamiliar with these parts of the internet. Remember that. I have been on the internet since I was 11 years old and I was unsupervised, and that was 26 years ago. So I found those spaces very early on. I know what Usenet is. I know those parts of the internet and I know what they're like, but this is, we need to talk about it. I would not go out there on the internet and start bagging on George and basically like saying he's a terrible driver and Lewis is so much better than him and blah blah woof woof. And I don't generally see a lot of Mercedes fans doing that either. I don't see a lot of Lewis fans doing that. In fact, I don't see that happening for any of the teams other than Ferrari. And it mostly seems to be the people who really like Charles Leclerc. Now, I really like Charles Leclerc. I think he's awesome. I think that he is 100% future world championship material when he's got the car under him. But I don't like Charles Leclerc at the expense of Carlos Sainz. I've kind of had to accept the fact that as somebody who is primarily a fan of the sport of Formula One, and I actually don't have a favourite team and I don't have a favourite driver, I understand that that is perhaps not the norm for most fans, okay? But I do have a soft spot for certain drivers and I do have a soft spot for certain teams. And I do have a soft spot for Ferrari, just like I've got a soft spot for Alfa Romeo. Don't at me about it. I don't want to like Ferrari, but I can't help but root for them sometimes. And I think part of that comes down to way back in the day when I used to root for Rubens Barrichello. Don't. There is allowed to be one person on the internet who is a Barrichello fan and not a Schumacher fan. Let me have that. Let me have that. I have a habit of rooting for the underdogs. Anyway, back to my fucking point. Jesus. I am so glad that this channel is not monetized because honestly, between the tits and the swearing this week, Charles Leclerc fans. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Shirley's. I've never come across or stumbled across what the Carlos fans call themselves. Maybe Shirley's is a derogatory term from the Carlos fans towards the Charles fans. I'm actually not entirely sure because I skim these things. I ingest information and I'm subjected to it and then I move on. Anyway, the Charles fans, they do things like dig around in family members' tweets and liked tweets, which is kind of weird, but it's something that we know people like to do on. I'm not calling it that. I'm not. Twitter. It's fucking Twitter. I'm not calling it x.com. Fuck. Anyway, you've got real me today. I'm sorry. Welcome to Unscripted Kimmy. It's a rant. The point that I'm trying to make is that Charles fans will try and find any reason to discredit Carlos Sainz that they possibly can. From what I can gather, doesn't really seem to happen much back the other way. The Carlos fans seem to get a bit defensive and they have their own little echo chamber of whatever going on, but it's nothing like what is happening over in the other side of the camp, okay? The other side of the garage, the internet garage for these two is I can't shut the doors, it's too hot. The point that I'm trying to make, as it pertains to the Mexico City Grand Prix, is very specific, and that is, no matter how Carlos Sainz performs, Charles Leclerc fans will always find a way to make it negative. Case in point, Carlos finishes behind Charles by not a huge amount. He's mid, he's washed, he's a shit driver, he doesn't belong in Ferrari, he's going to be kicked out before the end of his contract, there's no way his contract's getting renewed, blah blah woof woof. Go back to Monza, Carlos defends, certainly somewhat aggressively against Charles, definitely on the edge. Would Charles have done the same thing? Yeah, I think he probably would have. Carlos beats Charles and he is the enemy. He's not a team player. He's the devil. I just can't deal with this anymore. Why are you like this? I just don't understand. Why can't you just accept that sometimes a driver has to do a certain job because they qualified in a certain position? Here's the thing, right? People didn't talk enough about how well Carlos Sainz drove in this Mexico City Grand Prix. I need to get that correct. Now, if I remember correctly, no, I could be wrong here. As I said, I haven't scripted this. This is just me having a rant. This is just me getting mad. I need to calm down. It's because of the sickness, that's all it is. If I remember correctly, Carlos Sainz finished around about 5 seconds behind Charles Leclerc. I think it was somewhere between 4 and 6 seconds. I don't know. It was not a significant margin anyway. It was decent. It was actually very specifically exactly what was needed because when you think about it in the context of the entire race, he had a large enough gap between himself and Charles to ensure that if somebody did manage to pass him for 5th, it was going to take them a bit more effort to get past Charles in 3rd. The other thing that he was doing was keeping himself out of Charles' dirty air so he didn't destroy his own tyres. I know the aero wash is not as much of a problem at that high altitude, but it's still a problem. You want to be between 3 and 5 seconds behind to make sure that you're actually avoiding that aero wash coming through the corners. So what actually happened there is Ferrari did a good job. Like, they clearly had a strategy. They clearly were like, right, whoever is in front at the first quarter, you get priority. Whoever's behind, hang back about 4.5, 5 seconds, stay out of the dirty air and just keep whoever's behind at bay, ruin their tyres so they can't get past and get in front of your teammate. So, Charles Leclerc fan who loves to attack Carlos Sainz and say he's a terrible driver because he's 5 seconds behind, I hate to tell you this, but it's called strategy. And look, I get it. When you're a fan, especially when you're a fan with other people around you who are of a similar level of knowledge, you are going to try and insert yourself as a bit of an authority on a subject. People like to do that. People like to be seen as knowledgeable. I get it. I am certainly doing exactly the same thing here. I look at something and I go, this is what I thought happened. And I put the two things together and I go, okay, let's make a video about it. Normally I write a script. This is going to be a nightmare to edit. I need to take some Otrivin because my nose is literally dripping. And this is kind of, to a certain extent, a little bit about the booing as well. Like, I get that booing is a part of sport. I get that we can't really do anything about it. I kind of understand both perspectives. Personally, I just think it's shitty. Like, I would never do it. I think it's just kind of sad and pathetic when people do boo. With maybe some exceptional circumstances, like if somebody does something particularly and obviously unsporting and you boo in the moment. But, you know, booing somebody because their national anthem's playing and you don't like the fact that they're dominating a season is just a really crap thing to do. Or in Charles' case, you know, booing a driver who took your fave out when actually it was your fave's fault. Like, I just don't get it. I accept that it's a reality now, but I just don't get it. And like, a lot of it I think comes down to this: there are more fans of Formula One now, right? There are more fans of Formula One, and that's because of what Liberty Media has done. And as I said earlier, I don't think that's a bad thing. I genuinely think that Drive to Survive has been massive for the sport. It's awesome to see new fans in, but I think that to a certain extent, there is a certain etiquette that there is it's online stan culture, really, isn't it? It is. It's online stan culture that's the problem. And you will see this in any, like, you see this in hockey, you see this in NFL, you see this in K-pop fandom, you see this in other parts of the internet where I hang out, like Star Wars fandom. You always see this kind of behavior. It always happens, but we're experiencing it now as Formula One fans. It's this kind of sudden influx of people who we're not used to dealing with. We're used to being a relatively insular community that, like, most of the time, to be completely honest, up until the last year and a half, the only people that I ever talked to F1 about were my husband and his dad. I would read the news, but the people that I actually talked to about it and had conversations with about it were the people that I knew in my real life that are into F1. And that is my husband and my father-in-law. And that's it. And I'm sure that there's a lot of other people out there who are the same. The only people that they had conversations with about F1 were people they knew in real life, and not people who they found on the internet. It wasn't through Twitter. It wasn't through Reddit. It wasn't through other corners of the internet that I'm not going to discuss right now. You know the corner of the internet I'm talking about. I'm not going to say its name. Online stan culture has officially now infiltrated F1, and that's just something that we're going to have to accept. It was going to happen, and it has. The only thing that we can do to kind of protect ourselves from that is to remember that the internet is kind of a place where you have to curate your own experience. It's a place where you have to just not engage. Just don't do it. I have to stop myself every time I see a Charles Leclerc fan saying something unhinged about Carlos Sainz. I mean unhinged shit. Like, these are people that are going into the liked tweets of people's family members and using that as evidence against a person. I don't know about you, but I am not like my parents. It's just weird to be going to somebody's family member's tweets and using it as a kind of big gotcha cancel moment for their child. The other thing that this kind of segues into is people's private lives. Now, I get it. You want to know everything about your faith. This has been a problem with celebrity culture going back decades. People always want to know everything about every detail of the lives of their favourite celebrity. Unfortunately for Formula One drivers, it is not now just Lewis Hamilton who is globally famous. So many people have become DTS fans, especially like during COVID, when we were all stuck at home watching Tiger King. I did not watch Tiger King, by the way. My other half did when I was in bed, because I just couldn't bring myself to do it. These drivers are now far more famous than they ever would have been without that show, and with that comes this kind of invasiveness into their private lives that other celebrities have always had to deal with. And you know what? It's gross. I don't like celebrity culture to begin with. I am extremely anti general celebrity culture. I don't like gossip magazines. I don't like people fucking tweeting pictures with famous people that they've just met. I don't like it when people speculate about famous people's celebrities' love lives. I don't like any of that stuff. I don't want to know. Like, just leave these people alone. You don't go to your local barista who makes your coffee for you every morning if you can afford it, which some of us certainly can't, so I have to make my own coffee, but you get the point. You don't go to your local like supermarket checkout person who's just doing their job and go, oh, who did you fuck last night? Like, you wouldn't do it, right? I get it. Celebrities are getting paid a shitload of money. Sometimes they're not. Like, all you need to do is look at the frickin' like SAG-AFTRA strike and know how much some of these people that you think are famous are barely getting by. Regardless, you look at celebrities and you go, right, I have a right to this person's personal life because they have a public image. They're not a private citizen for all intents and purposes because they have celebrity. They're a public figure. But you don't, because they're just doing their job. Just like you and me going out there every day, getting a wage or a salary. They're just doing their job. Right. God. Okay. I'm done. I have ranted now for 40 minutes and I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna go and spend 5 hours editing now. Okay, bye.